All right, let's call this meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. We're gonna start with salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. All right, sunshine law notice. In accordance with the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act, public meetings may be held in person or by means of communication equipment, to include streaming services and other online meeting platforms. This meeting is being held in person through the Zoom meeting platform being broadcast from Borough Hall, 748 River Road, Fairhaven, New Jersey. Public participation for this regular council meeting of April 23rd, 2024 is available by call-in phone number or through web conference Zoom. Members of the public will be on mute until it is time for questions or comments, which will be announced. At that time, the public has the opportunity to question or comment by phone or through Zoom by the raise hand button and will be called on at the appropriate time. Notice of this meeting was included in a schedule of meetings, which was adopted by resolution number 2024-13 and sent to the Asbury Park Press and the Two River Times on January 4th, 2024. Posted on the Borough website, the Bulletin Board and Municipal Building, and has remained continuously posted as required under the statute. With adequate notice having been given, the Borough Clerk is directed to include this statement in the minutes of this meeting. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Council members Cole,
Here.
Pimentelli. Here. Hoey. Here. Hodge. Here. La Barbera. Olson.
Here.
Administrator Casagrande here, Attorney Sobel, Engineer Gardella, and Assistant Engineer Fortunes.
Great, thank you. So we are going to go into stormwater management. I just want to make a quick note that we have a few young ladies here tonight from Trinity for an AP Gov class. Yes, thank you for joining us. We're excited to have you. One of those ladies is, as I call her, Livy Raymond. We used to spend a lot of time in my house. I haven't seen her in years. So you put a big smile on my face tonight. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We have Nick Perchinsky and Rich Gardella. Gentlemen.
Evening. We're back again. We were here, seemed like not too long ago, to kind of give you an overview of some of the updates, some of the rule changes as it relates to the NJDEP stormwater rules. We put together some slides that we're going to show up on the screen tonight. Nick is going to walk us through, kind of give us some insight on what we need to do in the coming months, what we've accomplished this year in the last year or so, and some of the things moving forward as DEP, continues to tweak and modify the rules.
Good evening, everybody. I don't know, I was thinking I might just stand so I can see the board there a little better, if that's okay with you guys,
Yeah.
as we go through this. So today's agenda, we're going to talk about the stormwater rules, update on the revisions that the DEP has put into place, and then how that dovetails into compliance with our MS4 permit. Okay, next slide. Just to start us off, everybody has seen all the rain and the flooding, not just in Fairhaven here, but all over New Jersey. This is an example from April 30th, 2023, a year ago on Hance Road. Obviously, it's something that's in Fairhaven, but it's not unique to Fairhaven. It's happening around the state. Next slide. This is another example from a July storm last year. This is the intersection of Hunting and Hance Road. One of our DPW employees is there trying to check out to see if the inlet drain is clogged or if there's some other issue, but it wasn't necessarily the case. Within a half hour or so, that water dissipated and continued on its normal function. So again, the DEP stormwater rule change is looking to address the intensification, the frequency and the severity of rainfall. And it's upon us municipalities and DEP and the state to protect public safety, and that's why we're looking at these new stormwater rules. And wait, back one second, just the DEP has put these rules into effect, and they're calling them the inland flood protection rules. I'm not gonna say that a million times today, I'm just gonna call them the IFP. Okay? Next slide. So how did this come about? Governor Murphy issued an executive order 100, which basically said that DEP, you need to take a look at climate change and how it relates to our regulatory and our permitting process. So the DEP went into and issued an executive order in 2021 that said that basically precipitation expectations that guide state planning, state development, are not accurately reflecting the current intensity and conditions. So therefore, under the New Jersey Protection Climate, which is NJ Pact, they instituted the IFPs, which are incorporated into the stormwater rules under NJAC 7:8 and the flood hazard rules under 7:13. Next. So what's the purpose of the IFP? It's basically to make sure that we identify those areas that are of significant risk. We define them, and that we make sure that new development and investments address both the current conditions of the rainfall and future conditions over the lifetime of an asset. And that requires new and reconstructed sites to be designed with the best available rainfall data. Next. So again, why the IFP? Well, the DEP recognized that there's been some issues with the program. The increased precipitation. As a result of the rules only looked at the rainfall up to 1999. The outdated data causes issues with the new stormwater infrastructure. It doesn't necessarily take into consideration climate change or other build out scenarios. So the designs need to be updated because they're not protecting New Jersey for today or for the future. Next slide. So the DEP, along with NOAA, took a look at the rainfall data since 1999, and they recognized that the 2, 10, and 100-year storm rainfalls have increased 5%, 7%, and 15% respectively. And therefore, more rain equals more stormwater runoff. More runoff means more riverine flow, and more flow means higher flood elevations. So that's what they're trying to take into consideration with the new IFP rules. And the future precipitation for the projection up to the year 2100, they expect the rainfalls to increase by 24, 27, and 50%. Next slide.
I have a question. Did they keep the same definition of a 100-year storm as a 100-year storm?
Correct.
20.
It's just the rainfall intensity, the actual factor associated with those storms. So let's back up a slide. Is there one after that?
No, let's do this.
Okay. Not sure how, but there has this apply to Fairhaven. So Fairhaven has to, like all their municipalities, needs to update their stormwater management control ordinance. So the stormwater control ordinance is located under land use regulations under chapter 30-14, which was previously amended in 2021. So for a timeline of how these IFP rules are going to be kind of brought online is that the DEP adopted it July 17th, 2023. We're looking for the mayor and council, Fairhaven Council, to have a first reading on the 28th of May, 2024. And then the planning board will review it for recommendations. Oh, 2 slides back, you said. So that the planning board will review it in their June 18th meeting and make a recommendation. And then the council will adopt it July 8th in order to meet the July 16th, 2024 deadline from the DEP. Okay, next slide. So what are the key changes of the IFP? Basically, the design flood elevation for fluvial non-tidal flood mapping is gonna be increased by 2 feet. The second key change is that the future projected precipitation is gonna be used to calculate the flood elevation. So there's gonna be an adjustment factor that's associated with it. The IFP will also make sure that the DEP's flood hazard rules conform with the Uniform Construction Code and meet FEMA requirements, and that the BMPs are designed and calculated based on today's storms and the future storms. And one of the other key elements of this is that there used to be the ability to use the rational or modified rational method for calculations. It's a simplified method. They're eliminating that. They want the designers to look at more of a holistic and a more intense modeling for the rainfall design. Next slide.
Can you back up to that last one? Does the changing the flood elevation by 2 feet, does that affect existing properties when they're designed for new? I'm thinking about insurance, flood insurance.
Yeah, so this is, it's for new construction and it has to do with non-tidal. So like Navasink is tidal. So we're kind of lucky is that places like the Upper Passaic River or the Hackensack River, which are strictly fluvial, just rivers. For state studied streams, they're going to increase it by 2 feet.
So we're not gonna be impacted because Madison is.
Is tidal. This is more for fluvial river type of scenario. That's why they call it the inland flood protection rule
Right.
versus the, some of the coastal type scenarios, which are more prevalent along the Atlantic coast.
Got it.
But it still affects us. So basically, there's gonna be an opportunity in the future to do additional changes. Right now, the Fairhaven's stormwater control ordinance will be based on the DEP's model ordinance as found in Appendix D. We're working with Attorney Sobel to make sure we get all those incorporated into our 30-14 ordinance, and we'll comply with the DEP standards. Like I said, the DEP is kind of rolling out numerous type of changes to the ordinance from a state level, and there's going to be additional regulations in the fourth quarter of 2024, which will give us an opportunity to have additional talks for additional measures to be incorporated to our stormwater control ordinance. Some of those include or things to consider for Fairhaven is the use of low impact development techniques for site design. Reducing the threshold for major development. So if you think about it, is that the DEP regulations is a big cast net and it has an opening for certain size fish. And by changing the size of that net opening, we'll be able to incorporate additional restrictions when new development comes into play. So there's also the opportunity to create a threshold for a minor development scenario for cumulative impacts, very similar to what Fairhaven goes under a development pattern where we have small residential properties that have, kind of trickled and been demoed and rebuilt, and not necessarily on a major development scale. And there's also things like the definition of impervious surfaces, how we treat impervious surfaces, clarification of how redevelopment projects are calculated with regard to impervious coverage, and also strengthening our maintenance requirements. Next slide. So that's the inland flood protection rule, but for Fairhaven, we also have to make sure that we're complying with our MS4 permit. And the MS4 permit is basically says that, we all have the responsibility as elected officials, employees, volunteers, environmental groups to kind of work to make sure that all our decisions and ordinances kind of row in the same direction. Again, stormwater is in the grand scheme of things is generally pretty new. It was originally issued in 2004 and we're now in 2024. So it's only, 20 years old or so. Next slide. Here's a quick summary of the MS4 permits for the past year of how we maintain our compliance. In November, we updated our stormwater pollution prevention plans to be in concert with the state. That's basically operations and good housekeeping type of standards. The stormwater management plans are still in the process. That has to do more with the watershed and the reviewing it in conjunction with the master plan. Our annual reports are due every May, so our engineering department is working on getting that done. Obviously, we're doing our stormwater ordinances for the 2024. With regard to street sweeping for 2023, just as an order of magnitude, we basically did 40 days of street sweeping, covered about 940 miles for a total collected or swept waste of like 288 cubic yards for disposal. So that's taking that grime off our roads and cleaning up our gutters and our streets and ultimately our infrastructure, at least the Navasing. So that was, again, the new street sweeper is basically in use now, and we're hoping that those numbers are actually gonna come down as we continue to use it, and there's not as much grime and stuff in the roads. Obviously, we have our ongoing yearly training from the Public Works to all our different committees and organizations. We're constantly updating our website, so feel free to check it out and see the latest updates. Pipe cleaning for the micro projects and the other projects, we cleaned out, jetted and cleaned Foreman, Smith, Hunting, Hants, and Dartmouth, about 2,500 linear feet. And then obviously with our brush and leaf collection, we've gone through some ordinance changes with regards to the green can, so some of that stuff will also be eliminated from our roadways and our stormwater infrastructure, which we're looking forward to that. As well as our normal engineering projects, our capital improvement projects. We did improvements to, Park Lane with the sump inlets and Smith Street, increasing pipe sizes. As kind of all positive things with regard to our stormwater compliance. Next slide. And also in 2023, we installed our first Storm-X at the Fairhaven dock. Obviously, we take it off for the winter, but that's an example of the collection of floatables and other stuff that was captured and disposed of properly, before and after picture. Next. And then these pictures are from the inlet and pipe cleaning on Hants Road. You can see in the first picture, there's concrete block, there's curb pieces or sections. The second one has, anytime a residential project does development, they're demoing the site, they're excavating. If they don't have the proper soil erosion control measures, all that stuff kind of washes out. If we have a big storm and it ends up in our storm drain, it's the cholesterol of stormwater, basically. It clogs up our infrastructure, decreases our volume, and then impacts, downstream. Another example to the right there, the third picture is an example on Hants Road where we cameraed it. That's, if there's cracks in the pipe or at the joints, obviously during the summer months or over time, the roots seek water. So they'll go towards the water source, and over time, they basically create this web that impedes stormwater flow, which was one of the reasons why in the first picture, those Hants Road and Hunting Lane pictures that I showed you, we cleared this stuff up, and we're hoping that is one of the solutions to alleviate that stormwater flooding and issues that was happening in that area.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Can you only see that this is happening once you fully go in, or can you see this from a camera? Like, are you able to check how much each year, like, will you go in and clean each year now? What's the plan moving forward?
Well, we don't clean every year, but we do inspect all our inlets and the open areas. So if you go to the next picture, actually. So with the street sweeper, we have a vac associated with it. So that's our DPW guys, and we go out and clean out the actual inlet basins. Obviously, if we see that there's a lot of debris or sediment in there, we know there's a problem that we might need to further investigate.
Okay.
Next picture. Again, just in a summary here, this is complicated. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of clouds per se in stormwater, a lot of different regulatory, pieces, but we're all working hard and together to make sure that we're in compliance and that we're, going above and beyond to provide the residents of Fairhaven with the public safety and for the use of the public, you know, domain here. Next slide. Again, this is our stormwater webpage. You know, feel free to check it out. There's always updates. There's all of our required information with regard to the stormwater pollution program, all our ordinances regarding pet waste, litter control, wildlife feeding, what have you, all in one location. And we're constantly updating that on an annual or as required basis.
Our stormwater system is separate from the regular sewer system.
Yeah, we don't have a combined system. Yeah. And that's the conclusion. Any questions or comments?
I have a couple questions, Mayor, when you're ready to open a discussion.
Yeah, just hold one sec, Councilwoman, I'll come back to you.
Nick,
Yes.
all of this is proposed for the future. It's not retroactive.
It's moving forward with regard to the inland flood
Yeah.
protection rules,
Uh-huh.
yes, so they become effective once we adopt the inland flood protection rules, but there's. You know, opportunities in the near future to enhance those with additional measures, and that was the consensus and the goal.
Okay, but people who might live in that 2-foot extension that already are there, they're not bound by anything, are they?
When you say the 2-foot extension, you
No,
mean
you
the
said-
design?
Yeah.
The elevation increase?
Not.
The elevation increase.
So FEMA has the flood maps, which they put out every year, or they're effective flood maps, which you know, regulate the Navasink River. Those maps are as is, so in other words, if a hurricane came through and a structure that's in the floodplain is damaged or substantially, you know, demoed or whatever, and they have to rebuild, they would have to rebuild to the current step levels with regard to FEMA regulations.
But if you're there now, you don't have to
If
change.
you're there now, no, you're not have to change anything unless there's substantial improvement or substantial renovations.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Cole?
Thank you, Mayor. Nick, thank you so much for being here tonight. This is very helpful. I had a few questions, if I may. Some of the things that you described and what's going on right now, I think they were highlighted in red. Are those work items that are being funded with the grant and being prepared by Avakian under your direction? Or is it separate?
I think you're referring to the MS4 compliance stuff, so the
Yeah, man.
step number 1, the stormwater pollution prevention plan, Avakian helped us put that together and update that for conformance. Some of the other items like the stormwater management plans and the watershed management plan, that's stuff that has a 25, 26, and 28 timeline that we still need to work out the details for.
Okay. And I imagine there'll be future funding to be able to afford the assistance for that additional work. Is that your sense? Perhaps it's for
That I'm not sure about.
No.
So
Do
then
we-
is this something? Sorry.
Do
Tracy.
we know, Teresa, if DEP is going to release additional rounds of funding for
I
compliance?
believe this would fall into the category where it's state mandated, but not necessarily state paid.
Is any of the work that we need to do for this wave of obligation mapping that would identify the current condition of our infrastructure borough-wide?
So the inland flood protection rules are separate from the MS4 stuff, so the ordinances and the adoption that we're looking for this. For July 2024, don't involve the mapping portion of it, that's totally separate, I'm just bringing that up because it's all kind of combined and the reasoning. You know, as the update today was for the DP inland flood protection rules, but also the MS4, just to kind of highlight some of the stuff that's going on as it relates to stormwater.
So let's see, is there any part of this work that's going to include mapping of our infrastructure?
The inland flood protection portion of it?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Or the MS4 permit? No?
The MS4 permit is an ongoing permit compliance that we do every year as part of, you know, ongoing work associated with maintaining our permit.
Okay.
Um,
Let me ask my question another way. Would you find it valuable to have a map of our infrastructure?
yeah, the DEP requires us to have infrastructure mapping, and we're working to get that to the next level. So for the first stage of that was to map the outfalls. And the
Yep.
next part of that is to map the actual infrastructure, the pipes, the inlets, the sizes and what have you. And we're working on getting into compliance with that.
Okay. Um,
We have the majority of that.
do we? That's
Yeah,
great.
There's pre-existing mapping that was done prior to even these rules coming out. This came back from like the Brickman administration back in the nineties for the shore communities. So being that we're a coastal community, we have a lot of that base mapping in place. What we need to update is all the projects that have taken place since then, compare that with the current mapping.
And put them in a one format.
Put it in
They're all,
one
they're on
format.
different formats, be it
Some are
AutoCAD.
PDFs, some are AutoCAD, some are GIS, ArcGIS. It's kind of just putting it all in.
That would be great when we get to that point. Okay. Do you feel like you can identify the existing sort of, we'll call them hotspots or areas of concern, significant risk? We sort of all know where they are roughly. Do you have a feel for that?
Well, I think a lot of the storm drain cleaning
Mhm.
was targeted around those hotspots. I think a lot of the stormwater improvements we just did as part of the micro projects back in March. We started with the storm drain pipe installs. I think we've already seen the benefits of that.
And it also has to do with just the natural topography of Fairhaven, the low spots in certain areas that, we don't have necessarily control over. They're just low spots by definition, and houses were built in those low spots. So you have groundwater seepage and you have overland flow that kind of accumulates in those low spots.
Yeah. One last question. There, if we were going to entertain additional regulatory other regulations that would go beyond the minimum that DEP is requiring, what would you recommend? Are these DIYs sort of on your home, sort of green infrastructure, simple stuff, or would you advise us to consider other measures?
No, I think that's part of the next discussion, like I said, is to discuss, the definitions of major and minor development. Discussing the BMPs, which ones are most applicable to the development trends in Fairhaven. And how we put that into practice with regard to, the requirements from the engineering side of the land use development. Those are things that, we're looking forward to those discussions with the various different inputs from the committees, the environmental commission, the mayor and council, the boards.
So then, sorry, you gave me one more question. Procedurally, I know because this is land use, it's going to take a trip over to the planning board and come back. It would be interesting because I know that when I was working with the environmental commission very closely, they were entertaining some suggestions for our land use boards that had to do with, how can you put in a simple dry well, DIY stuff, the green infrastructure though, which is the major sort of tone of, I'm watching the stormwater management, instruction that we're required to view. So there's some talk of that. And I know that the environmental commission was giving a good deal of thought to try to get some sort of, just suggestions, things for land use boards and to keep in mind. I don't know that that ever materialized, but they had a good, healthy, ongoing discussion about DIY green infrastructure, just for the homeowner, just for your average homeowner. It would be good to get their input.
We've seen some of that, just as an FYI, a majority of it's not gonna go before the land use boards. It's gonna come through my office, and Nick's office, for review, for inspection, for observation during construction. So even though some of it is a DIY type of stuff, we're gonna still have to review it to ensure that there's no adverse effects on neighboring properties, or that the materials they're using and some of the design that they're implementing makes sense. And that's gotta be somewhat regulated. Now, putting some of that in an ordinance is kind of the things that we were talking about, maybe some of those next steps, but we also have to look at the impacts on the office staff as well, as it relates to trying to process all this stuff that comes through the office and ensuring it's being done properly. And especially during construction, even though it could be some homeowner type stuff, they're still gonna call, they're still gonna need some assistance. Their contractor may have questions, and typically we go out and try to provide some assistance at that time. You know, at least during construction before it's all done. So I just wanted to add that.
I hear you. I hear you, Rick.
It's another layer that we just need to capture, you know, internally, and you know, those are things where we have to look at, you know, what's the balance that makes sense? If we want to go above and beyond, you know, the model ordinance.
I think
Generally speaking, there's gonna be an opportunity for the homeowners to do, like you say, a do-it-yourself type of water landscaping that doesn't necessarily require any type of review or what have you. And then the other, you know, side of that is a developer coming in with new construction, either subdivision or a new house that's gonna be having more structured requirements with regard to seasonal high separation, size of the structure, the amount of impervious coverage that's connected, not connected, and where those BMPs are gonna be located. So there's gonna be a kind of hodgepodge of options that will ultimately benefit the community in its entirety.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Rich.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out a couple of things. Obviously, Nick alluded to it. There is required training for governing body members. I know you have the link. Does have a time frame on it. Allison sent it out. I asked you to please double check if you can't find that. Talk to Allison, she'll resend it to you. In some very good planning ahead of time, the finance committee, we did put $10,000 into a newly established stormwater management line this year that's outside of cap to start building monies that we will need to address, you know, some of the stormwater stuff. And as you move forward, as much as this that you can charge to that outside the cap line, the better off you are. And that really comes down to things like manpower. I mean, you think about it, you know, the DEP is pushing this all down to the local level. And like Nick and Rich talked about, the review of plans and the inspections and going out, that's going to impact their offices significantly. And you know, they're going to need some assistance to, as these things step up, to get that done. And that's something that you will have to look at going forward.
Teresa, on that note, have we spent, I know as of February 26th, we had not spent any of the $25,000 we were awarded. We still have that?
Yes.
Do we have plans for it?
No, I was sort of waiting to see how, you know, things broke out and what we thought. You can't use it for soft costs. It can't be used for, like you couldn't pay for the Avakian study for argument's sake.
Okay. So it couldn't be for planning then, for any kind of, or,
You know,
compiling that.
I don't think so. I think I don't believe there was a planning component to that, but I have to go back and review it again.
or could it be paid for compiling all that information that you're saying is in multiple different
I think that's
formats?
what we were initially talking about, is using that money to help with the mapping
Yeah.
portion of the project.
And I just wonder, like, how you're finding out what the problem areas are. I assume it's mostly just by people calling in and saying we're flooding and all of that happening, because
No, we
to
have,
her
the
point-
DPW guys are driving around, I'm driving around, Rich is driving around. We, you know, during storms, we're jumping around to different locations, we're double checking things. Prior to storms, all our guys go out and we check various different locations to make sure that they're clear and free of debris or deadfall or what have you. So we have a routine with that, and then we kind of also debrief after a storm, and we kind of take a look and say, hey, this is what happened. Why did it happen? How do we fix it? How can we, you know, address those things? We have to take it to the next level where there's, you know, additional engineering involved, or is it something that's, you know, really a private property or private public, you know, owner that's doing it? And we try to address those internally and try to, you know, bring them up the chain of command to figure out, you know, what the issue is and how can we address it through ordinances or something else.
you know, in full disclosure, I'm really close to this issue, so it's a little bit different for me talking about it, so if there's any bias here, forgive me, but one of the big takeaways is I worry though that we're doing things a little bit piecemeal and not understanding how everything's fitting together. So, you know, there were a lot of things done with the pipes being cleaned. But that took about 3 years to get that done, and it really did help River Road, you know, like it's not where I live personally, it's not flooding now. But I just wonder how it's all connected and how the different areas are affecting each other, and instead of like piecemealing it, I would prefer we had more of a plan.
Yeah, ultimately, don't disagree with you, but it's also a moving target. It's changing. Every storm is different, the intensity is different, where, you know, where the rain is coming from. If there's blockage in one area, it kind of pops up in a different
Yeah.
area.
Oh, yeah.
So that it's a kind of you know, on
Fungible?
It comes down to funding. It really comes down to funding. You know, the numbers that we have on the screen, we spent $60,000 cleaning pipes.
Mhm.
So we have to be creative on how to get it done.
Mhm.
We got a portion done under the 3rd Street project, we got a portion done under the Hance Road and Cooney project. We got a portion done through the River Road Corridor project and New Jersey American Water. We just finished another portion through this micro project. So yes, it may seem piecemeal, but small town, limited budget, limited engineering. You know, we kind of just plug away, and through our years of experience here, we know the hot spots. And to Nick's point, we're out there during the storms. You know, we're out there at, you might have seen me in your neighborhood a couple of weeks ago at 10 o'clock at night, running around with a flashlight, you know, looking in storm drains, checking all the pipes, seeing where, you know, if it's flowing. That's how we tell, you know, we get in there. So, but you know, to Nick's point too, these rules came on 20 years ago. We've come a long way. We've done a lot. We wanted to kind of outline some of the components and compliance that we've already done. Obviously, we have this ordinance, which is really the target date, which is July. We're gonna work with Andrew's office to hit that. We try to fund, I think it's safe to say, we try to put in for stormwater yearly and in our budget requests. But sometimes you have to figure out a way to get it done alternatively, so.
And I will say for the past 15 years, to their credit, our engineering department, within every road project, we've looked at drainage. You know, as part of the road project, if we're gonna do an area, we do it right. If drainage is involved, we had catch basins that led to no, they weren't hooked up to anything, you know? So we've made some major improvements over the years, but once again, you know, there's only so much capital funds every year that we allocate towards those projects. I mean, I'm sure tomorrow could, you know, allocate $500,000 to stormwater management if you so desired, and, you know, write it off over time or budget, but it will ultimately impact, you know, the taxpayers.
I did take the required course, and it was hard to watch, just because with all the new rules, it seemed to me, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, but some of the projects that are still happening seem like a lot of what was done aren't even close to the regulations now or the new rules. So do any of them, if they're ongoing projects, even if they're still going on when these new rules go in place, they don't have to follow the rules, correct?
Well, I think part of it is, I think we can agree that Fairhaven is built out. So when you're trying to introduce some of these rules, you're trying to retrofit some of these standards into existing infrastructure and existing street network. As Nick said, there's existing low spots within the borough. The topography of the land is what it is. So you're dealing with, it's all pre-existing conditions. So from an engineering standpoint, you try to implement some of those standards, you try to do those improvements. Things do get better, things have gotten better. But to try to size a pipe, say for a 100-year storm or a 25-year storm based on the new rainfall data, you know, you might see a 48-inch pipe going down Foreman Street out to Hands. It's not necessarily realistic. So you have to look at what other things can we do to make it better, and I've been, my entire career, I've worked in coastal communities, so normally what we try to do is if something floods 20 times a year, maybe we can get it down to 2 times a year. That's a major improvement. That's the type of things you need to look at.
What about for the ones that are just starting to flood now, though? So like down Hants Road, a lot of the newer builds are now flooding in their basements, and they're building things that need to expel the water, which is then only gonna exacerbate some of the problems. So are we really, I don't really know what my question is, but there are new things popping up each time. So then how do we keep, it? Just, it keeps just adding on to the problem.
Well, the basements are a different topic of discussion. You know,
Okay.
that's water table, that's seasonal high, water.
I mean, wouldn't that more go towards the developer, the builder, and that's their responsibility? I mean, the borough's not gonna get involved with a builder that doesn't have experience and.
Well, but that's, I guess, kind of to back then, how do we enforce or make sure that these builders are building this stuff up? Isn't that on us though, to
No.
make sure that they're up to code and up to the
Well,
standards?
up to code, but at the same time, as far as, you know, whether they're able to seal up a basement and properly outfit a basement, first of all, they have to know what the water table is. And I'm speaking more as someone that has experience in this field, is they have to understand what they're building, and they're warranting a product, right? There's a warranty. I have a neighbor down the block from me that they built on, there's a stream that has basically been subverted around the basement, and the builder chose to build there and chose to build a basement where there's actually a known stream going through that, the basement area.
But how do
That's-
we allow, I guess I'm not as caught up, but like, how do we allow that as a town? Because wouldn't that then ultimately have some negative impacts on all the buildings or all the houses around it at some point? The new, yeah,
So we
so,
have a new ordinance that prohibits people from, they have to keep their basement 2 feet above the seasonal high water mark. And we passed that ordinance, so there are some homes that were being built into it,
yeah.
and that's when we realized that there was a problem, and then we created this ordinance to avoid that from happening again. But at the same time, limiting the height of the first floor so that you didn't build your house an extra 5 or 6 feet up to allow yourself to have a 10-foot basement.
So we just need to keep on top of it. and
Yeah,
things
but
like
that's
that.
all part of zoning,
Yeah.
when they.
Well, in the building department,
Yeah,
because they're the ones that are really.
Yeah, so when a new house comes in for zoning, they submit not only the architectural plan, but they submit an engineering plan. Part of the engineering plan includes geotechnical soil borings. So their professionals are certified, are going out there digging holes in the location of the proposed house. And they're checking the soils, and they're looking for what they call modeling, seasonal high modeling.
Mhm.
And they define that layer, and they have an elevation associated with it. And they use that as one of the first parameters to establish where their basement is. And they package that up and they present it to us, and they're signing and sealing it that it works per the ordinance. We're not going out there and we're not digging trenches on their property, double checking that, but they're saying that it satisfies the standards for that type of development.
Okay. And who is, because one of the big things that I took out of this meeting or the seminar was like maintenance of everything. And they said a lot of the towns are deficient because of maintenance. Who checks up on us? Like are they regularly
I get
checking?
audited.
We do get audited. How often do they audit us?
Inspected, typically every
2 to 4 years.
2 to 3 years, I would say 3 years.
And have we been compliant? That's good.
A lot of it is record keeping, good housekeeping. Obviously the annual stormwater report that we do. And, when we go out, they jump in our cars and drive out to certain places and things, yes. And spend hours in our office, going through everything. So, yes. But like everyone else, they're understaffed, so We might see them in a couple years, we might see them in 4 years. It all depends.
I have more questions, but I'll.
But I can tell you to, Fairhaven is somewhat unique because you have in-house engineers. So as a result, we are here, we're also running DPW. And we are with the guys, we have educated them, we have brought them along. We have gotten the right equipment that we think we need to do the job at a very cost-effective way. And at the end of the day, we have to seal, we have to certify these reports and send this stuff into DEP. So as licensed professionals, we're plugging along like everybody else to get this done. I don't know, I sense a little hesitation.
It's a little bit hard for me, so I'm
Yeah.
trying to.
Yeah. Okay.
Couple questions. I also watched the video, stormwater video. Ironically, I found it very dry.
I mean, it was it's super boring.
You have trouble falling asleep, yes.
Everyone
And
watched
it's
it.
the same every year.
It's terrible.
So a couple serious questions. So I may have lost the thread in the presentation. There's the IFP mandates from the state, which in plain English are new ordinance requirements, model ordinance for new building. That the idea is it will relieve pressure on the system if buildings are built to a higher standard to manage stormwater. Is that correct? Well, elevation and, impervious and all the different things. And the idea of that is to help relieve the pressure on our stormwater system. Is that correct? Is that what the ordinance, and that's what they're trying to do?
It's also making sure that new construction addresses the future, and that we're not just looking at rainfalls from
The impacts.
previous years, we're looking at a projected rainfall and flow and making sure that the new construction can manage that stormwater, that higher level of stormwater that's generated.
Yes, and so if someone builds to the new standard, the system in theory will have less pressure on it. Right, if ever, after 100 years or whatever, all the buildings are replaced up to the new standard. And there'll be less pressure, so that's the idea of it, correct? The IFP.
Yeah, it's to try to help address the more intense rainfall and the greater frequency of these rainfalls. Generally speaking, like Richard was saying, the stormwater infrastructure underground is not designed for 100-year storm events.
Right.
It's impractical to build it to that level of size wise, volume wise. It's built for a 25-year storm event. And it's understood that it's gonna fail, but if it fails, we wanna make sure that it fails in a way that there's not causing downstream impacts. But generally speaking, the idea of using the additional factor of safety with regard to these future precipitation rainfall data will help alleviate some of that pressure moving forward.
All right, so that piece they're doing, trying to do new build with new ordinances, new requirements. And then this is the part where I may have lost the thread. Is there a second piece of the state mandates that impact our system? Our pipes have to be so much in diameter and we have to clean them at a certain speed or frequency. Is that also part of what?
That's part of the normal MS4
So it's the
compliance,
Okay.
right? That's our
And-
housekeeping maintenance portion of the
And
project.
that's not changing. The changes.
There's changes that we talked about last year are kind of ramped up. There's a timeline, a deadline associated with them. So there's just 24, 25, 20. Yeah, there's certain things that kind of come online during that time frame. I can send you the PowerPoint from last year that talked about that portion of it.
All right, I'll land the plane now. Where all this was headed was, have we penciled out the CapEx, the costs of?
No, because I think it's probably fair enough that we haven't really assessed that yet.
Okay. And we don't anticipate the state helping with the funding, just the mandate part.
I
of it.
wouldn't.
And most of the IFP stuff is for the developer side of things, the private side of things, not necessarily on the public side. The MS4 is more like the public side of
Yeah,
things.
that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The ordinances, the IFP are private development and M4.
Is the rules of
MS4.
permitting regulation regarding those types of things, the wetlands, the flood hazard area, those are the rules and regulations for development, where the MS4 is our our permit as Fairhaven and what we need to do for compliance.
So the cost to the borough for IFP, is it extra administrative?
Correct.
Inspectors, compliant, you know, that kind of thing?
Correct.
Yeah.
And their current fund expenses, unfortunately,
Yes, and that didn't make it.
yes.
Okay,
And again, like I said, there's supposed to be additional regulations coming in the second half of 2024, which we don't know all those things yet, but supposedly they're also trying to, you know, ramp up some of these regulations, which gives us an opportunity to do some of those additional measures that I talked about.
do you think that it's below the threshold of having to add another person? Or do you think we have capacity?
I think it's very fair to say that the engineering and public works department is already both administrative assistants. So this will just make that even more apparent.
I mean, obviously, I think it's very important that we address this full on and put everything we can towards it. But in that vein, would we have made any changes, or would this change our plans for the PD or community center? Like, would any of those requirements change what we've done in terms of stormwater with PD and community?
DPW, our consulting engineers put in some stormwater management measures to deal with the project as a renovation. It's strictly a renovation. We're not really doing a ton of site work. The majority of the site work is probably landscaping and buffering and fence. We weren't looking at repaving the parking lot, we weren't reconfiguring the topography. If anything, we're taking away some impervious surface. So the majority of that is going to capture some of that movement. Right now, there's really no stormwater management on that site. Everything sheet flows out towards a catch basin, eventually ends up into Third Street infrastructure system. Over at PD, the consulting engineer put in a series of pipe. Who was in charge there?
So I think there was some minimal refresh from them.
Yeah, I think they did some recharge under the parking lot to pick up and capture. And we also introduced a rain garden on the westerly side to capture some of the runoff. So it was kind of a mix of some of the things that Tracy brought up about, you know, what little things can we do to make it better than it is. Keeping the budget in mind, of course. Because as you can easily have spent $1 million in stormwater management at DPW. But we felt, let's implement the measures that we're gonna do. We are doing some recharge. But also recognizing we had some pre-existing conditions that we had to deal with from an environmental standpoint too, so you also have to keep that in mind.
Okay.
Yeah, any type
Yeah.
of development, if you're a homeowner, if you're a municipality, if you're, building a 200 subdivisions in a project. Obviously, stormwater is one of the first concerns, and you're balancing budget over development, how many market rate units you want versus, meeting the rules and regulations and how much you want to, put into that portion of the project. So, from early on, when I started out in the consulting world, one of the first things you looked at was stormwater. How much area do you need to dedicate to stormwater? And then you have to take that out and see what's left for the rest of it to develop. And that's the same for a residential homeowner, and anybody else. You're constantly balancing those things.
I think just to sum it up, a good indicator too, to see what we're dealing with is over at Fairhaven Fields, we have a sand infiltration basin. That basin was built, I believe, in 2005 or 6. At the time it was built, it seemed like it was oversized for the parking area and the improvements that were done at the park. If you go by there now, just about every heavy storm event, it's full of water, or at least holding water.
Is it you're talking about like between the parking lots?
Between Dartmouth Avenue and the parking lot.
Mhm.
So you can visually see, yeah, the rainfall intensity is up. The numbers do show that the rainfall is up. We don't have those all over the town like most municipalities do with shopping centers and subdivisions and a lot of these major stormwater. Because a lot of the rules that you see, that's where that maintenance really comes into play, is
Yeah.
maintaining those types of stormwater,
Yeah,
basins.
yeah,
We don't have that. We have one municipal owned basin in all of Marion. But it's because of the pre-existing condition and built out factor of Fairhaven, so I just wanted to conclude with that.
And one of the things you remember too, when you're looking at these ordinances, particularly looking at the ones that are pertaining to residential, you know, there's different levels. You can start with the base ordinance like we're gonna adopt, and different groups will give you more intensified ordinances, but they all come at a cost to your residents. You know, at some point, do you want Mrs. Jones to spend, you know, $5,000 or $55,000 on a project? And those are the things you have to take a long run look at. The Porter Pond has overflowed its banks twice since I've been here. And do you want to spend $1 million on stormwater, you know, for twice in 15 years? I don't know what the answer to that is, but once again, those are the decisions you have to make. And they're not easy sometimes.
Thank you guys so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate the
Yeah.
presentation and all the hard work you've done to improve this. And I do think we've seen improvement, although to the people that are affected, obviously, it's, you know, even one time is too many, so.
Yeah.
Really appreciative.
Thank
Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Next up, we have the beautification committee as a fundraising proposal. I believe Susan is here. Hello, Susan?
That's it.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody. So those of you that are familiar or not familiar with the beautification committee, basically the mission statement is we, you know, bring little pieces of beauty to the town, but our goal is to do it at no burden with the budget. We have a tiny, tiny budget. And so, but we have big ideas, tiny budget, big ideas. And so one of the ways to take care of that is to do some fundraising. And so we've got two fundraising ideas, one of which is to resurrect what Betsy and I put together many years ago and kind of died during COVID and all the renovations of some of the buildings, and that is to bring back the dedicated bench, the dedicated tree program, which twofold, A, can raise a little bit of money, but also offsets the cost of of things that the borough of benches or items such as that the borough wanted to put into place. They don't have to pay for it, somebody else will pay for it. Perfect example is the park at Normandy, those gorgeous benches that are down there. We put several ones at McCarter Park, as well as ones down at Fairhaven Fields. So that's one of the other things we'd like to really start to do. So if there's any locations that you guys can think of that's coming up, I know there's a lot of construction going on, let us know. And that's one of the ways that we would like to raise money for beautification. Yeah,
I know, we're getting new benches down at the dock, right?
that's a perfect.
Could we make that part of our bench program?
I believe we've ordered them already, so.
Well, whether you ordered them or not, doesn't matter. You can
Yeah,
still,
we'll sell them.
yeah.
That's up to mayor and council.
Yeah.
Pardon? No. I'm sorry.
No, the goal is to have some uniformity as well, so like they would be, we're just waiting on DJ to give us pricing, it's actually the only holdup. That he's looking into, like making sure they're similar to the ones that we've used. And then the other one, which we're really excited about, is the buoy trade. And the goal is, and so the mayor asked a very good question of me, what am I asking from the borough? The only thing the beautification committee is asking of the borough is A, being able to do it, like look at the location and a little electricity. And so our goal is to do it over this, to have to start it out with a summer project. We might do more of these throughout the year, possibly if it becomes a hit. But do one at the dock. I actually have, I think I sent you 2 pictures. Was there a second, the location? The other location is, the picture of where on the dock, which is just the corner, just right there. There's electricity up on top. We measured it all out. It would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 11, counting the base, feet tall. We'd be able to do about 200 buoys. And the goal would be to sell them and then you decorate them yourself, nothing political or obscene. Stores can do it, they can, decorate them and just have it look like a pretty little tree, so the boats going by or people going down to the dock would be able to see them. So that's really all we're asking for. And then the money would be, the Foundation of Fairhaven has, offered to, I don't know what it is, to do the fundraiser. And then, sponsor the fundraiser through the Foundation of Fairhaven, and then at the end of it, we would cut a check for the beautification committee. So that's the goal.
Is the tree permanent or is it just during the fundraiser?
It will never leave. No, it's absolutely not permanent.
And what happens?
And it also would be, one other thing is, we have somebody who's gonna construct it, and he had some really great ideas. We would anchor it underneath the 2 poles, as well as there'd be sandbags on the inside of it, so it wouldn't go anywhere. So it wouldn't be.
How long do you picture it being there?
It's whatever we were thinking like a month is what we were kind of, something like a month, or like maybe 6 weeks, somewhere in that time frame, like a July to early August.
Then what would happen to it?
And then people can either take their buoys back, and then it's being constructed so that it can then be folded down, and then if we wanted to use it again, we could use it again.
It would be down for hurricane season.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, no, it's not a permanent, we don't want it to be permanent, it's just like, because we want to be able to do it again and raise more money.
How does the lighting work?
It's just Christmas tree lights.
So
So you
they're on-
wrap it all, you wrap it,
Put them on a timer?
we could do whatever you want, yeah, absolutely, a timer, actually, I think that's what we were thinking of as a timer.
Okay.
And like turn it off at whatever time you guys would want it turned off, 9 o'clock, whatever.
And I'm
There's
assuming you wanted the dock because of the buoys. This isn't something you consider I guess maybe it's not appropriate for Memorial Park. Okay.
I don't think Memorial Park would want it.
Do we think there's any issue, with the crabbers?
Other than,
That's the least used spot on the dock, I think, for crabbing, but they do use it.
I'd be more concerned about vandalism,
Oh,
people taking
sure.
movies off and chucking them in the river or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm,
No, I know,
more so than worrying about crappers, that would be my only concern, but.
and we're hoping that the people in town would not do that. I
What was the
mean,
timing on this? I'm sorry.
the timing would be we're potentially looking at like the summertime, so we want the boats to see
So
it
it won't
going
be
by.
near the concerts. That's-
No, even if it was in the way of the concerts, it's not in the way of the concerts, the way it's being built, they could just build,
I think.
and, we actually would kind of like it up during some of the, we think it'd be kind
No, I
of cool
think
during the
it's cool,
concerts. So that was kind of our thought, but I know the concerts really only run into the beginning of July, so. But if the concerts needed the electricity that was there, we would, just unplug it.
Mhm.
But the priority would be the concert. So that's our thought.
Those LED lights don't draw much power.
No, it would have to be plugged in. We did look at that.
Right, but it won't cost anything.
Oh, yeah, LED, I'm thinking when you were talking about second battery lights, we looked into that too, but that would be.
Is there, Attorney Silva, are there any insurance concerns you have?
I don't have any concerns.
So how do we proceed?
The motion to approve, right?
All right, I make a motion to approve the beautification committee's fundraiser for the buoy tree.
Okay, second.
Noting that it's going through Foundation of Fairhaven and not through the borough.
Yeah, and then we're gonna cut a check once,
Yeah.
we'll cut the check after for it to be earmarked, and we can do that, right? It can be earmarked for the beautification committee, correct? That's what I thought.
Yeah, I'll talk to CFO, but
Yeah,
I'll see what we have to set up.
yeah, 'cause we've got a bunch of good plans.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you for your time.
I think you're gonna have a lot. I think you're gonna.
Yeah, yeah.
To a lot of them.
Yeah, we had thought about doing like a workshop and like the Christmas wreaths and.
Okay. Let's keep this train moving. We have a workshop session. We have a request for a singular lawn sign. Do we need a approval for singular lawn sign?
She wasn't sure, Emery's on, if anybody else, I figure we would do a blanket one in case anybody else can say, we would do this stuff.
But when it's on private property?
Yes,
Yes.
It's the same,
yeah.
I think I see a lot of signs on private property that haven't come through here.
Well, then they're not supposed to be there.
We've got an elevation.
Okay, well, I didn't see anything. Okay, so Anyone have any concerns here?
No.
Want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the request for the Holy Cross Academy.
Second.
All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, next up, workshop session to amend Borough Code 3 Police Regulations to add section 21 entitled Resident Protection. Anyone had a chance to look at this?
Yeah.
Have any questions,
No, very good.
concerns? Anyone want to add anything to it?
I guess my question was just for you, to be honest. Do we have the authority to do this?
We do, and then I don't know if the chief wants to speak on it, vote.
No, we looked at it and we checked that, but, yeah, you have the authority now, if something is, conflicts with the state, state statute, and the state statute.
Will control.
Yeah, I saw it was like, if one piece of it, it's still legal.
Yeah, but you might not have one, state statute, might have one piece, so I don't see any harm in that.
Okay.
There's no harm and there's no, any bias or discrimination, here, it's.
So I think it's a great thing, the mayor, said to me a few weeks ago, I think it's a great thing, like I said, because sometimes the state statute won't cover, it, and also maybe when it goes to court, maybe there won't be enough there, and then we can do that, so I don't see any harm.
One of the things here, I mean, really, this is almost like an anti-loitering, we're trying to prevent people from casing houses.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely clear in this.
Yeah, you might not have quite enough for a state statute, but. you
Right.
have enough, So I don't see any.
So a local ordinance would, control here, it would be
Yeah.
probably a petty disorderly person, so I understand.
When mayor's happy.
Yeah.
So,
No, the other one that generally kind of stuck out a little bit was possess an electronic device that's capable of determining if electronic key is located inside the motor vehicle. Now, generally, I'm sure no one really has that isn't trying to do this. But,
No, there's some rumors out there that there is, I've never seen one, but
yeah,
if we come across one.
I guess I'm just saying, like, a random person just
in the
having.
future,
Yeah,
I'm sure they're going to invent one,
But-
so.
okay.
I just want to make sure this gives you what you need, chief.
Yeah, absolutely. I looked it over and I think it fits well.
Have there been times where you had someone that you see turning a doorknob or something and you say, I can't, there's no ordinance against.
Right, you think I went through the wrong car or something, there's no real word. I mean, there are some Title 39 stuff for tampering with vehicles and stuff, but it may not fit with this May. But again, if a state statute fits, then that's what you charge.
Right, but you've had to walk away from,
There's time to correct.
when you maybe your gut's telling you shouldn't, but you have no
Right.
authority. Correct. I think this is good.
Great.
Thank you. So we'll put that on for introduction on the 13th.
Yes.
Good. All right, next up is public comment on agenda items only. This is only for agenda items. Please try to observe a 3-minute time limit. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address. Is there anyone in the public? Yes. Bonnie, hello.
Monica, 115 Down Road. I probably just don't understand this, the whole stormwater thing, but is the goal to channel all the stormwater runoff into the Nelson River?
No.
I mean, because it seems like the more curves we add, the more the water is rushing and going into the drains, and where else would the drains go? I just don't understand what it is. If there's one basin that's all the way over by Red Bank, I mean, not. I don't know, I'm just curious.
Generally speaking, you want water to sheet flow over grass or lawn area, so it infiltrates into the groundwater, it gets cleaned and whatever, and gets to the Navigate via the groundwater instead of piping. Obviously, if there's existing infrastructure already in place, then the water is going to hit those currents, so the gutters and continue on. But, one of the areas that we look when we do a road project or something else is to see if there's an opportunity to provide for that gutter flow to actually be dissipated into an area where there's sheet flow can go into the grass area and infiltrate. But generally speaking, there's not many places like that in area because everything's developed. properties.
So like Lewis Lane is just right off that, and you just put the sidewalk in and the curves, so. That's channeling it down. Was there, I guess, is there a goal, certain yards that it's going into? I guess I'm just trying to understand.
We just replaced deteriorated curving on that project.
Well, there was actually
There wasn't
11.
more work.
Perfect. On Lewis, where you just had the sidewalk?
Yeah.
Those yards,
It's all, it was all.
it's like little teeny, okay. Well, I guess I just, okay,
Half of it was destroyed and damaged,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm not criticizing, I'm just trying to understand, it just seems to me that everything goes into the NAPSIC, and if that's the case. Then I guess shouldn't we be, isn't the stormwater management rules to try to protect our waterways, I don't, I just, it concerns me that.
The next point. All existing residential in most of these neighborhoods, we can't just heat flow water into people's yards. So we're trying to contain it in the streets as best as we can. Most of the projects we're doing right now as it relates to the concrete work is removed and replaced. Aside from adding sidewalk and doing pedestrian improvements and safety upgrades as it relates to that.
So that is, it doesn't get very all good, it just seems, I don't know. But, and being that I live at the end of Baton, right as you come to the end of Baton, and you turn right to go down to the dock, there's a drain right there that is always, always full of water. I don't, all it looks to be is a place to breed mosquitoes. Is it supposed to be draining water, or is it, it doesn't be functional at all? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that drain basically comes across from Holland. There's a shallow pipe. And the only purpose is to drain the Holly intersection to get it across and down the hill, the way it's always been.
So that does actually.
So
drain
it's
you.
made to fill up and overflow, and that's been like that.
So it's a retention basin, not a,
It's a sump inlet.
It's like a sump inlet, and when it rains enough, it'll come out the top of the grate and flow further down towards the boat ramp thing.
But if it, I bet you the month of July, year ago, when it was no rain, it was still full. I mean, I've never seen that there's no water in it. And I've
The
lived
pipe's like this deep, so
Okay.
it's a very shallow, it's been
Okay.
like that
Okay.
for probably 50 years.
Yeah.
Looking at old mapping, there looked like there was an outfall that went through your property or a neighbor's property out towards the Navasink at one point in time. So I don't know if that at some point got removed or whatever, but that's, if you look at some of the old mapping, it showed a pipe that discharged through your property or the neighbor's property. I don't know. if
There
that-
actually is a pipe, at low tide, you can see the water coming out there. Okay, so it's-
Bonnie, we'll take a look at that one you just brought up, for micro projects 2.0 when we get there, and maybe we'll consider whether it's bigger pipe or whatever.
Okay. You know, you don't do that, and I don't mind, but, I mean, the stormwater. Is there any consideration for chemical use on the lawns, is that part of stormwater?
Talking about fertilization.
I'm just talking about the pollution factor, I mean, there's so much, everything's washing off everybody's property down again. into the
There's
river.
been discussions of that, you know, at a higher level, a lot of it comes down to enforcement. And also the commercial entity that ultimately makes the product.
Well, I guess I'm also being
It's an
educated,
education and awareness for the
Yeah.
residents.
Education there.
yeah, and saying, do you realize, I mean.
And that's where the environmental commission, the green team can help facilitate some of those communications and part of their outreach programs to help identify to, let's say, the McCarty Pond watershed area that it doesn't necessarily make sense to use all these chemicals. Maybe there's a different alternative.
Well, it would be great if it didn't get put on the green team, because then everybody thinks it's like the green team being the green team. If the town supported, hey, do you realize that, just consider not putting them.
We do ongoing education, that was on our front side last week.
Yeah, we have it on our website, under stormwater pollution, we talk about some of that stuff. And we constantly, Betty Ann constantly has PSAs that involve such things.
Okay, Right.
Same thing with like washing cars and that type of stuff.
So hopefully the green team can step up and match our effort. Come on, Bonnie.
Well, Bonnie, we'll bring it up at the communications meeting,
Yeah.
but Betty Ann has been doing a good
Yeah.
job, but we'll. Can also.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the public with a agenda item only? Agenda item only? No?
Stephanie Adams.
Yes. Hello, Stephanie. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Great.
Stephanie Adams, 230 Oxford. Regarding the stormwater and I think you called it the cholesterol, the sludge, the construction site sludge that's ending up in the storm drains. I'm wondering if any of you are familiar with, there's an initiative going on for, I think they're calling it clean construction sites. Clean construction site. I think that's what it's called. I know Monmouth Beach currently has an ordinance under attorney review where basically they're requiring developers, construction companies to encapsulate the sawdust from manufactured lumber, siding, any type of cutting that's going on the sites. They're actually requiring them to encapsulate the waste product and take it off of the site, as opposed to letting it run into the road and into the storm drains and clogging everything up. I'm just wondering if you guys are familiar with that and if that's something that Fairhaven would consider reviewing.
I'm not familiar with it, but if it were to pass through in Monmouth Beach, Stephanie, and we can get our hands on it, I'd certainly take a look at it.
Okay. Okay. I have a contact there and I'll, once it's out of attorney review, I'll see if I can, should I have that go to the EC or do you want it to go directly to you, or how do you want me to?
Take it. I would start with Brian, Councilman Olson.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
And then second quick question, on the southeast corner of Dartmouth and Hunting, where those sidewalks and curbs went in a while back, there's that pool of water. It has a cone in it.
Yeah, Stephanie, we haven't paved there yet. So when we pave there, that'll be
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that gonna happen before the summer? Like, cause we're waiting for like the frogs and the mosquitoes and whatnot. It's been there for quite some time. I don't know if there's any way to drain it or if the paving is happening in the next month or so.
What's wrong with frogs?
Dartmouth and,
Yeah, nice.
Not, we're not, well, as long as the frogs are there to eat the mosquitoes, then it's all good. Yeah.
Maybe not. What's that?
Um,
You think midway through the
we're
summer?
working through all the concrete work throughout the site, throughout the project, and then we're in the middle of painting one shot.
Okay.
So basically, I don't know if you heard that, Stephanie, we have to work our way through all the concrete work. Once that's done, we're gonna mill and pave everything, probably on the same day, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not on that street, but I've had a few neighbors approach me and ask me about it. So I guess if it's still there when the mosquitoes start to come in, maybe we can figure out a way to get that water out of there, or I don't know. It'll end up there again, but.
We opened that radius up a little bit to make it a little more friendly for cars. I don't know if you noticed that, when you make the turn off the Hunting now. So we temporarily base paved it, we didn't bring it up to finish elevation. That's why it should fall in somewhere.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Anyone else? Allison?
No.
Okay, thank you. Moving along, approval of minutes, April 8th, 2024, special meeting executive session. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second. Allison, may I please have a roll call?
Cole,
yes.
Piacelli,
Yes.
Bowie, yes, Bunch,
Yes.
Olson.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone old business? Good. All right. New business. We have the consent agenda resolution 2024-102 through 116. Before I ask for a motion, does anyone want to separate anything on here? No? Does anyone have any questions on anything, comments on anyone? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
Allison, let's have a roll call.
Councilmember Paul,
Yes.
McBelly,
Yes.
Tony, yes, Hodge,
Yes.
Olson.
Yes.
Next up is the department reports, March 2024. Just reminds me how much I miss Councilman LaBarbera, as I ask if anyone has a motion with a.
Oh,
Thank you.
You.
Aw.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. We are now at the good of the borough portion of the meeting. Please stand and identify yourself by clearly stating your name and address for the record. Please try to observe a time limit of 3 minutes. Anyone in the public?
Josh, oh, excuse me. I'm gonna take the public first. There is a grants committee report Michael and I have for the council, whenever you're ready for it.
Okay, okay with you? Councilwoman Cole.
Oh, thank you. Sorry,
want
I
me to take
missed
it,
the
Tracy,
usual
or
order
Paul?
of things. Michael's gonna take the lead on that because I'm so ill.
So this is the grant or summary for the community-based deer management grant program. So we are seeking the governing body's approval for the NJDEP Community-Based Deer Management Grant Program, which assists in the facilitating efforts to address overabundant deer in New Jersey. So this is on our radar, obviously, with deer management and deer mitigation. So we feel that this is good. It could be good timing. One of the big things that you get out of this is that it's a forest health survey, which will provide us with a tool for planning purposes, including deer management, but also it'll give us an overview of invasive species, tree cover conditions, and diversity of plants and more. There is no match to this. So the only outstanding piece of this would be to find out how much a plan like this would come. We have a couple of calls out. We have an idea, it might be around $15,000 or less, but we are waiting for those specifics. But I guess, Tracy, we're really just asking if we can move forward with the grant, being that there is no match. And it's not too complicated, so we don't think we need to have a grant writer write it. We think that we can do it with our volunteers. Is that right, Tracy? I'm not speaking out of turn.
The grants committee looked at it and thought, well, it's not going to be hard to write this. And there seemed to be wanting to incentivize local municipalities to take steps to contemplate the deer management issue. And it sort of timed quite well with where Fairhaven finds itself in this moment. So, you know, it was one of those opportunities we thought at least the governing body should be made aware. There is no match. It's a straightforward grant. If you want to do it, we can get it in. It's due May 5th or 3rd. Yeah. So be a smidge of a scramble, but also it's not an intense application.
Do we, is there, if we are awarded the grant, is there any commitment to having to use it?
No, I don't think so. I don't remember that piece of that. I don't think so, no.
Do you mean, could we give them, could we turn it down?
Yeah, like if they said you've been awarded the grant for $15,000 and we decide, for whatever the reason, I'm not saying we would, that we just don't want to do the forest health survey.
Or it's more than 15.
Or it's 25,000, we say, well, that's great, but we don't want to spend $10,000 out of pocket.
Right.
To move forward. Do we have to accept this?
That was my concern as well. It doesn't sound like it, Josh. If there wasn't anything in the materials that suggested we were beholden or obligated. So
and Teresa, does this this grant program, does this ring a bell to you as an entity that if we turned it down, you know, it was going to damage us on future?
Yeah, I don't think, I'm surprised they're not looking at it more regionally. You know, it doesn't make sense to me to, you know, give one to 6 towns located on the peninsula. But, you know, I'm not running the grant program, so, you know,
And it can be county, but it can only be government, it can't be any nonprofits. So, but in fairness, we are looking at deer mitigation as our own problem. We're not collaborating with the other towns, so we are dealing with it ourselves. This would give us more information to be able to go into that process with more knowledge, but also it would help Shade Tree Commission, natural fields to understand more which trees are diseased, which I know we've done a little bit of that. We did a tree inventory, but this would be a fuller overview.
Well, I support it as long as we're not committed to accepting it. And that would be something I'd want before anyone filled it out, just to confirm. I don't know how everyone else feels.
I agree with you
Mm.
that we need to find out if we're accepted, that we have to accept it. But who would you use to conduct this survey? Do you have anybody in mind, or the companies that specialize in this?
Tracy, do you want to speak to that? But yes, I mean, we're our in-house.
I had the same questions, Betsy, and I put my questions to Jody Powers. This is a program house within the Fish and Wildlife Deer Management Division. And Jody Powers is, her, I believe. She's been to Fairhaven and and I wanted to know if they had a list of vendors or if it was something that was done at the forestry department. It wasn't clear that it was, it won't be done by our staff. It would be done by somebody outside, whether it's our, maybe our planning and engineering team, as long as they have a certified tree expert, or maybe with a pre-approved vendor that, they know meets their standards for whatever the health tree survey is supposed to look like. That said, I know the state doesn't usually hand select professionals. So I put those questions out. I don't have the answers back yet, but it doesn't fall to our staff is maybe one of the reasons you're asking the question. Certainly was my question.
Well, under the program description, it refers to a forest health survey. So who would be the people to fit? Is it a one-person survey, or is it a community survey? How does that work?
Well, it's a survey of our canopy, our forested areas, our wetland areas, anywhere where we have trees, woods. I would assume the right of way is not part of it, but I could be wrong. Maybe it is part, the right of way could be part of it, but it's public lands.
So we would hire whoever this grant would pay for them to provide this survey of our portion.
So it's more of an assessment.
Yes.
Correct.
Not like a questionnaire survey,
Right, that's
more
what
like
it is.
a
Yes.
engineering survey.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. To kind of think of it like a catalog of what we've got.
As long as we're not committed.
Is everyone all right with that? Any
Yeah.
questions?
I just kindly request, can we get this information in advance? I think this is the second or third time the grants committee has put this on the table, like at the meeting, and I'm just on the website right now, and I see that there's funding available for signage, for hunting programs, for a health survey, for a venison donation program. There's a lot more to it, and which is fine, but I think it would be much more efficient if we all had time to do a little bit of research on this before we vote on something going forward.
That's fair feedback.
That's always our intention. I have to say, we're a small but mighty group. And now some of our key members are also fully employed. In this instance, we had our meeting on Monday and under the deadline restrictions, we have to get it in by Thursday, really Wednesday night. There just isn't an adequate amount of time for a volunteer to turn around prepared materials. It happens. We are aware of the deadlines, certainly respect them, just find it difficult at times, or even impossible sometimes. They will certainly continue to strive to do that.
Thank you. You need something for us, Allison, on that? You know, vote on that?
You can do a motion to allow them to do.
Motion, someone give motion approved pending that we don't have to commit if awarded the grant.
All right, so I make a motion that we approve the community-based deer management grant program with the understanding that if we choose not to follow through, once awarded the grant, that we don't have to use it. We can return it.
Second. All in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, we're still good to the borough. Bonnie,
Proceeding on between that. The other day was at McCarter Park and I saw this sign about the spraying for the mining bees. And then yesterday I was at Civic School helping plant the pollinator garden and I spoke to both Marilyn Schwartz and Sean. They were both there for the pollinator garden and I asked them if somebody had complained about the bees and if that was the reason that they were spraying. You complained about this?
absolutely. It was out of control. The amount of bees in the back corner of that property was out of control.
In the back corner.
Yes.
This
When I say corner, I mean, it probably encompassed 15% of the entire park. It
In
was covered in ground bees, out of control. Yep. And in fact, I made the complaint and I believe this borough administrator, Casagrande, had said to me, like, not everyone likes spraying. And I asked, 3 times I asked, can you please send someone there to see it? And then, I think it was DJ that went. And he sort of looked at it and he was like, that, it's pretty substantial. Was it DJ or was it you? Remember? DJ? Yeah.
Well, these are mining bees, right? They're not yellow jackets.
Okay,
And they're little.
I understand that.
Okay. Yeah, so you know that they are non-aggressive and they rarely sting. And all they're doing is hatching out of the ground and getting that company back in their hole with their babies. And
Again, we're not gonna have 15% of our park covered by ground bees. It was out of, this isn't like a few bees on the ground that are.
You're down in the park, I just saw right by the sign in front. There's the sign.
If
It's
you're-
the entire
If
park.
you're on Fairhaven Road, looking at McCarter Park, it's around McCarter Park, right?
Mhm.
If you're looking at the park, all the way in the back right corner,
Okay,
past the playground, that whole area.
okay, well, the front was sprayed too then, I guess, because that's where the pesticide.
Well, if if you don't get rid of the bees, then the next year they're gonna continue to spread. I mean, that's,
So the goal was to kill them.
we weren't inviting them in for lunch. I mean, yeah, we're trying to get rid of them.
Okay, but Josh, I mean, I would. The spray that was used was, I think, more of a deterrent. Spray, do you guys know what the spray was? It was
Oil-based, I know.
ECV, yeah, it was time, but, I guess I just, it seems to me it was a lot of panicking about, I don't know, I just.
Not panicking,
Fine
we have
oil.
to get rid of bees.
Well, some bees are protected by
Yeah.
law. I don't know that.
I don't believe those are the bees that are protected by laws.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, I don't know.
Well, they wouldn't exterminate them if they.
Correct.
weren't.
Yeah. I guess I just,
Reassuring Bonnie a little.
I don't know, I think with pollinators, I think it's dangerous, I mean, they do have on the ground. I mean, maybe you want to try to work on the grass growing, because they want to be in the soft dirt.
You just mentioned that what they used didn't kill the bees?
I don't think that, well, I think you're trying to discourage them from nesting there, correct? You don't want them
I
there.
don't want them in the park where we have tons of kids playing, whether they're aggressive or not. A kid steps on a bee, they get stung,
So I
the
guess,
liability for the town.
well, but then my question is also, what is our policy on spraying chemicals in highly trafficked parks? But, I mean, to put the sign there, it says no children, no dogs. I guess I just am curious, what's our policy on spraying in these really
This is
child
an organic,
heavy?
this is an organic spray. It's made of thyme and rosemary.
Yeah, I mean, chrysanthemums make an organic spray too, but it's deadly. So I mean, it's not necessarily, I don't know, I guess I just was curious what our policy was. I see those signs up, the pesticide signs in the parks by the swing sets and the dogs, and I just wondered what the general feeling is about when we spray. Do we just always spray, or do we just?
No, in fact, the last few years we haven't sprayed and that's led to them, making their home bigger and bigger in that park. So, every once in a while, you're gonna have to make a decision like that, and what's acceptable? Would it be acceptable if 100% of the park was covered by those bees for 3 weeks?
No, I guess I just was looking for an alternative to killing them, maybe plant grass, because if you have grass there, they're not gonna be there, they like the dirt, I don't know, I guess, but I just was curious.
I had those ground bees on my front yard when I had grass there. Absolutely. They find spots,
Okay,
100%. They'll find anywhere they can. They keep spreading and spreading unless you get rid of them. So there's plenty of opportunity for those bees to go to other places within the borough of Fairhaven. Just, we don't want them next to our playground where all the kids are playing.
so,
Yeah, it's not an appropriate place to, experiment with ground bees right next to a playground. I just don't think it is. It's my opinion. It doesn't mean everyone has to share it, but
no, so I guess that's what it is, the policy, like, who makes the decision? You make the decision that it's right for them, or?
Well, as far as policy goes, we follow whatever rules and regulations. We have licensed pesticide people that work for the borough, and we hire companies that are licensed, and that's why you saw it posted, and they have certain chemicals they can and cannot use. We're fully within the guidelines when we do treat, whether it's fertilizer or pesticides, or whatever the case may be, we follow, the procedures set out by the DEP.
Okay, yeah, I did see there are 2 more treatments. So, right, for Saturday and then another one.
Yeah, I don't have the schedule in front of me.
I just read the sign, but, okay, I hate to be non-aggressive.
But Bonnie, educate us, because it says,
Well,
it says that stinging bees are likely to, mining bees are likely to sting you if they feel that they are a threat. That's what I'm reading, and it says that the EPA has actually approved this because it says that the risks are next to zero
the risk of the chemical.
of the chemical. So I'm trying to. if
But
mining
I guess
bees are-
I've only read things that mining bees are non-aggressive and are not high, so they're not like a yellow jacket.
So my understanding from what I remember is the male does not have a stinger, the female does. The female will sting you if it feels threatened. So the female bee doesn't realize that 5-year-old Gregory running around, chasing his own shadow is not threatening to it. And I'm telling you, they were everywhere. This wasn't like one here and one by the table and one over by Councilwoman DiMichelli and one back there. It was every 6 inches spotted all over 15% of the back of the park. To me, it was a no-brainer. Again, I can find the email. Borough Administrator Castronetti at first pushed back. She was like, no, they're not aggressive. And I said, no, you have to go look. They are everywhere. So, yes. Anyone else in the public? Yes.
Hi, Marty, I've got three hands raised since I have you guys here tonight. Just wanted to know if there's an update on the milling and paving for hands. Date wise.
That's right.
Yeah, we spoke with the contractor. It's not after May 17th. They have some commitments they need to finish up in the short period before Memorial Day weekend. And then we're next.
Okay, that'd be great, thanks. I figured it would probably
Well,
coincide
that
with
was-
somebody coming.
Yeah, we'll send notices out.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else in the public? Public comment?
It's just Carolyn Ferguson just texted me and said, could I tell everybody about the volunteer weekend in the natural areas?
So Paul Ferguson has his hand up, so I.
Okay, that's fair.
And I have Stephanie Adams, so.
We'll come, yeah, if we need to, we'll come back, but you could bring anyone who's next, whoever was first, bring them in. Yep.
Hi, Stephanie Adams. Just to follow up on what Bonnie was saying, and I hear all sides of the argument. Sadly, they are organic chemicals, but they're chemicals nonetheless. They are considered neurotoxic. And so, but I understand the problem. What I would encourage us to do maybe next time is to do a better job of letting the community know. I was at Sickle School most of Sunday, a lot of Monday. I read the sheet that was on that they had taped onto the fence that fell on the ground. And the rule is that the areas that are sprayed should be avoided for 72 hours. it hadn't been 72 hours. And the other problem is you have these little white flags that are so close to the ground, and the children aren't going to stop and look at the little white flag that says no kids, no dogs. So maybe next time I mean, I know it's an extra step, but we could maybe fence off, not fence, but like chicken wire or some way to close off the areas that are sprayed, because there were kids and dogs all over the park for the 2 days in areas that were meant to be avoided. And people did, and again, maybe let the community know that we're spraying, look for the white flags or look for the areas that are fenced off, because it still is dangerous to dogs and kids. It kills fish. So we have to remember that, this stuff is going to run off and end up in the river. So just something to think about, but maybe do a better job of kind of letting people know that what's been done and not giving them access to those areas.
Stephanie, that's good feedback. And I agree with you. I personally wouldn't want to be walking around, right after they sprayed either.
And there were kids and dogs,
Sure.
Josh, all day Sunday and all day Monday. So we can do better to keep them away from those areas.
Sounds
And
good.
I know that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephanie. Allison, anyone else?
Paul Ferguson or Carolyn?
Yep. Hi, everybody.
Hi,
This is Carol,
Carolyn.
7 Colonial Court. The natural area is having its volunteer weekend this weekend from 10 to 1 both days. On Saturday, we'll be meeting at the community garden entrance of the natural area. And on Sunday, we'll be meeting at the Fairhaven Road entrance. We have trees to plant. As usual, we have vines to pull, plenty of good projects for all ages. We could really use help. So if, anyone out there can join us, that would be great. And if everybody could spread the word, we would really appreciate that too. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
You're welcome.
Just wanted to say, May 23rd, the Diamonds 12U baseball team is hosting a fundraiser to help subsidize some of the expenses associated with their annual trip or first ever annual trip to Cooperstown. The cost to enter the tournament is like $25,000. We've done a good job of raising some fees so far. But for a bigger event to come on the 23rd, we sent out a save the date, more information to come. Anything else?
Thank you. That's good. Allison, anyone else?
No, sir.
Bonnie, did you have something else or no? Good, okay. I just want to make a quick comment. I wasn't able to be there for like the actual event portion of the art show. I got there a little late off a plane. And they're not here tonight, but I wanted to just mention that I thought the art show and all the feedback I got from it was fantastic. A really great addition to our community. I hope that it continues into the future. I know a lot of people picked up some pretty cool artwork at this event, so.
Some good money.
Yeah, and then. Oh, great, that's great. And there was one piece of artwork I would have purchased, but it was gone by the time I got there. It was pretty, 2 crab claws.
Well, the one I wanted was the most expensive one, so.
The 25,000, did that go or no? No, really?
Don't believe so.
Yeah, right? We'll pull
This
together,
is,
we'll pass that around.
But they did a great
Us-
job. They did an amazing job.
I just wanted to offer a small data point to back up your color there, Josh. There were over 300 plus people in attendance, in cycles, of course, not everyone there at the same time, on just Friday.
Yeah.
And I believe anecdotal, only one person tried to sit on a pew. Is that an accurate
I'm
statement?
not aware of anyone.
You're not aware, that's what I was, it was 1 attempt at a pew.
But they did
All
look
right,
beautiful.
Can I add one thing?
oh, absolutely, I'm
Just,
sorry.
just a reminder that also Love Where You Live Day is on May 5th in the on the 3rd Street Trail, and it's gonna be an amazing event, so.
And I believe it's the same day as the townwide yard sale. So, is it, no, that's the rain date, which it doesn't make sense to me that the rain date's the day before, but.
That was the 4th.
The 4th is the townwide yard sale?
Yes,
The Love Where You Live Day is the 5th.
yes.
The rain date is the 5th for the townwide yard sale? Or no?
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
It does make more sense, but I'm not sure it's right. Okay. With that being said, we're gonna move towards executive session, 8:46 PM. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Tracy, are you opposed? Do you want to stay with us right now?
She can't.
We have 5 minutes.
There's only.
Where is that? We didn't hear from her tonight.
Do I have a motion to close this meeting at 9:24 PM? So,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Good night, Fairhaven.
Sorry, but she had that.
Does it matter if,